Hi guys, it's Reilly. Today I'm going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. That's drinking. So I'm going to try to answer the who, what, where, and when of drinking in America, I guess. So I'll talk about what Americans drink, what kind of alcohol, etc. Where they drink, who they drink with, and when they typically drink. But before all that, I should do the socials. So my Instagram is Reilly Sullivan XD, and Sota's is eigonosota. Alright, and with that out of the way, let's get started. Alright, so first of all, what do Americans usually drink? And I think probably when most of you think of drinking in America, you probably think of beer. And that's true. I mean, I think beer is probably the most common alcoholic drink for Americans. But I wonder if maybe you think of like Budweiser as like the most popular American drink. And in a way, it is. Like, Budweiser is popular, but you probably think of like the red can, right? You can get it in Japan. But that one, the red can, is not actually that popular. Most people drink Bud Light. Light beer is something in America that's like, I think it's supposed to be fewer calories, so it's like, I don't know, diet beer. It's not 0 calories, but it's less than the regular one. And it also has less alcohol, so like a light beer, like a Bud Light or Miller Light is another one, will be around like 3%, maybe 3.5%. And yeah, those kind of beers are typically very light in flavor as well, not very strong or heavy in any particular flavor. The other kind of beer that people drink a lot would be craft beer, right? Craft beer I know is getting a little bit popular in Japan recently, but it's still kind of like a niche interest. I mean, like kind of a special interest. Maybe not everyone is really interested in craft beer. But in America, it's pretty much everywhere at this point. You can buy craft beer, like a lot of different kinds of craft beer in supermarkets, probably in like gas station convenience stores, and yeah, of course, like at the brewery. And there will be breweries everywhere. You know, every town will have 2 or 3 small breweries, and there are a few much bigger ones across the country. Yeah, there's probably too many craft beers for me to name. Some of my favorites are called Lagunitas, which I think is from California, Bell's, which is from Michigan, and then the one from my hometown is called Flying Dog. So I don't know, if you ever see those in a Japanese craft beer store, I recommend them, or if you're ever in America, go ahead and try to buy one. Okay, after beer, obviously people drink wine. I think in America, most of the wine is made in California, also maybe a little bit of like Oregon, just north of California. And of course people also drink wine from other countries, France and Spain and Australia, whatever. But wine is kind of usually thought of as a little bit more of like a high class thing. Maybe not high class, but at least classy, we could say. It's a little bit of a nicer thing to drink. And it's also maybe a little bit more, it's considered more like something women drink. Of course, men drink it too, but maybe if you go to like the average dinner party or something like that, probably most of the men will order a beer, and maybe most of the women will order wine. It's just kind of the stereotype, I guess. After that, there's whiskey, I think would be the next most popular, I'm guessing. Especially bourbon. So bourbon is kind of whiskey made with mostly corn in Kentucky. Only in Kentucky. So if it's not made in the state of Kentucky, it's not bourbon. So like, for example, Jack Daniel's is like a popular whiskey. It's made in Tennessee in a style of bourbon, but it's not made in Kentucky, so it's not bourbon. Another one, and actually one that I like the most, is called rye whiskey. So rye whiskey is made with rye wheat, and it's a little bit, I don't know how to describe it, like a little bit spicier tasting than bourbon. That's kind of why I like it. I think it has a more interesting flavor. But then, of course, people will also drink Scotch and Japanese whiskey if they can get it. I think right now Japanese whiskey is extremely expensive in America. But yeah, I guess I'll talk about this a little more later, but like whiskey is often something that people will drink just by itself, like on the rocks or something like that. And people will sometimes mix it. I know in Japan there's like the highball, right, which is basically whiskey and soda. That's not so common in America, and definitely not, people don't call it a highball. People would, if they ordered that, they would order a whiskey and soda. And I think probably the most popular cocktails are typically those kind of like 2-ingredient cocktails. So like a gin soda, a gin tonic maybe is a little bit popular, probably not as popular as it is in Japan. Whiskey ginger, which is a whiskey and ginger ale, right, is like really popular. A whiskey and Coke, or often people will just say a Jack and Coke for Jack Daniels and Coke. And then all, you know, those kind of things, like a vodka and cranberry juice is popular, stuff like that. But yeah, anyway, there's a lot of cocktails, and I think cocktails are something that people will drink when they're outside of the house, but probably not so much in the house, which makes sense. People don't usually have many different bottles of alcohol in the house. But they do usually have, we usually call it like a liquor cabinet, which will be like, I don't know, a cabinet, right? Like almost like a big closet or something that will have a few different kinds of alcohol in it. Maybe one each of the major kinds of like whiskey, vodka, tequila. Oh, I should talk about tequila. I'll talk about that after. But then, so they'll have alcohol in the cabinet, and then in the fridge, they'll have beer, whatever. Probably most of the time, there will be some beer in the fridge. Anyway, yeah, tequila. So tequila is probably most popular in like the Southwest, so, you know, from Texas to California, that kind of area. But it's getting popular all over the United States. Tequila is a alcohol made in Mexico, made from a kind of cactus. And so I guess because America shares a border with Mexico, it became popular in America as well. But for a really long time, and probably still today, tequila is considered kind of like only a party drink. People associate tequila with taking shots. And, you know, I really like tequila, and I don't like that it's known as this kind of like party-only drink, especially because the kind of tequila that people usually drink as a shot is not very good tequila. So, yeah, you can make cocktails with tequila, of course. One of the popular ones is called a tequila sunrise. It's basically tequila and orange juice. Sometimes people add a kind of, I think, strawberry syrup called grenadine. Is grenadine strawberry? No, grenadine is like pomegranate. Anyway, the red syrup people add. And then, yeah, you can. There are also like nicer tequilas that you can sip like you would a whiskey or something like that. But anyway, okay. Next, so where Americans drink. I think much like Japan, maybe. Probably most times Americans drink is at home. After work, they'll have a beer, maybe a glass of wine with dinner. And then, of course, like a big difference would be like house parties. A lot of times people will have parties in their homes and invite their friends. Maybe just for dinner, maybe for a barbecue, maybe for like an actual party if they're younger, where people are drinking a lot and late into the night. People also drink at restaurants. But I think, unlike Japan, it's not very popular to drink, like, to just drink at restaurants, like it is at a izakaya or something like that in Japan. People will typically, like, eat their meal and have a few drinks with the meal and then go to the next place, like go to a bar. And yeah, I guess that brings up bars. Bars are probably the most popular place to drink outside of the house. So people drink with their friends at bars after work or on the weekend. And yeah, it's pretty common to have like a local bar, a bar that you usually go to not every day, but maybe every week or something like that. So that would be the place where, like, the bartender and the other customers, or at least most of them that go there, and it's like a little community. There's a couple of famous shows that have this in them. Probably the most famous one is called Cheers, and then there's a more recent one called How I Met Your Mother. Those are both kind of based around bars, a group of friends that hang out in bars. And one major difference about where Americans drink versus Japanese people is it's illegal in America to drink outside. So, you can drink in your house, or, I mean, technically you can drink outside of your house, like in your yard or something. But, like, it's not legal to drink on the street in America, like walking down the street. Or in parks, it's technically illegal. It kind of depends on the situation. Like, if you're having a picnic and you bring a bottle of wine or a few beers, I think technically that's against the law, but it's pretty common, and it would be surprising if a police officer came and, like, stopped you. Another situation like that is the beach. Technically, it's not legal to drink on the beach, but most people, maybe not most, but many people do it, and it's typically not a problem, even if police officers see you. But yeah, like walking around on the street, like if you go from, if there's a street with many bars on it, you can't take a drink from one bar to the next bar, or you can't order a drink and drink outside. A lot of the times, like, also smoking is not allowed in pretty much any bar in America. And so people will often go smoke outside of the bar. But sometimes you can't even bring your drink just outside to go smoke. You'll have to leave your drink with a friend or something like that. Or finish your drink and then go have a cigarette and then come back in the bar. Yeah, so that leaves off with where Americans drink. Next, we'll talk about who Americans drink with. So I would say probably with their family, like their loved one or their husband or wife. It's probably most common, obviously. Next would be with friends. So friends at parties at your house, or maybe you have friends that you see just at the bar that you go to that maybe aren't like friends that you would go do other kinds of activities with, but they're friends that you often drink with. That's kind of common. You might drink with coworkers, but unlike Japan, that's not like the main thing. Like, you might drink with coworkers every once in a while at like some kind of work event. But of course, like, if you like your coworkers, if you have coworkers who are also kind of friends, then of course you might go drinking with them in like a small group. But going out kind of like as a company and drinking together is not super common. It happens, but it's not like the main way that people drink. Okay, and then when Americans drink. So, yeah, obviously Americans drink at night most of the time, on weekends most of the time. There's an expression, I guess there's kind of like an expectation that people don't start drinking until after 5 o'clock. Even on weekends, that tends to be kind of the expectation. But 5 o'clock p.m., obviously. Maybe I don't have to say that. But yeah, there's kind of an expectation that drinking usually happens at night. Obviously, if there's like a picnic or a barbecue or you're at the beach or something like that, maybe drinking would happen earlier during the day. In that situation, people will often say it's 5 o'clock somewhere. It's like a saying people will often say if they're drinking earlier than 5 o'clock, they say, oh, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Meaning it might not be 5 o'clock here, but in Europe, it's 5 o'clock, right? Kind of like a joke. I don't know if it was the original, but I think it comes from a song by a guy named Jimmy Buffett. Kind of like a country song. Okay, last is when Americans drink. So, oh, I said that already. Sorry. But when they drink in terms of in the year. So there are some big holidays that are kind of like drinking holidays. Probably the biggest one is New Year's Eve. So the day before New Year's on December 31st. New Year's is not really like a family holiday in America, so people will see their friends and have a New Year's Eve party with their friends or go to a bar until midnight on New Year's Eve. That's probably like the biggest drinking day. There are some other ones that are not holidays in terms that they're not like days off, but they're like basically just drinking days. One of them is St. Patrick's Day, which is like originally an Irish holiday that's popular in America because of a lot of Irish immigrants came to America, and that, people drink Guinness and other Irish beers, Irish whiskey like Jameson or something, and people basically just go to bars and drink. That's basically what that holiday is for. The 4th of July, American Independence Day, is a big barbecue holiday, fireworks and stuff like that. So during that time, people are often drinking. Another one you may not have heard of is Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo in English is Cinco de Mayo means the 5th of May, and it's a Mexican holiday. I think about a big battle that happened in Mexico, and so probably originally popular with like Mexican immigrants in America, but now it's kind of an excuse for all kinds of Americans to drink, and often tequila, and maybe Mexican beers, stuff like Modelo or Tecate are like big American beers. Corona, obviously, is the American beer, or Mexican beer most people know. After that, like Christmas is kind of a drinking holiday. People will be with their family. They might be drinking during dinner and stuff, but it's not like really a huge drinking day. One that is, though, is Thanksgiving, or rather the day before Thanksgiving, because Thanksgiving is a big travel holiday because a lot of people will go back to their family home, like their parents' house, their grandparents' house, to have Thanksgiving. And they'll usually come a day early, like on a Wednesday, because Thanksgiving is always on a Thursday. So on Wednesday, they'll come to their hometown, and then they will usually not immediately like start the, festivities. They don't, because Thanksgiving is kind of just basically one meal, right, on the Thursday, one dinner or early dinner most of the time. So on Wednesday, everybody will kind of be back in their hometown. So it's a really big day for people to go to a bar in town and meet all their like high school friends or old friends that they haven't seen in a long time. So the day before Thanksgiving is like, I think, the busiest bar day of the year for that reason. And yeah, I think that's just about everything. I went a little bit long today, but I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, if you think I missed anything, if there are any kind of important ways of drinking that I didn't really talk about, please let me know. Thanks for listening. Bye.